particular pathway, prescriptive or performance, and then we made motions and voted on them based on hearing all of them, rather than voting on one proposal, then voting on another proposal, then voting on another proposal. And that seemed to be good, so I'm gonna try and keep that keep that pattern here. I don't, and as the chair, I can do that. I want to also kind of talk briefly about the fuel normalization table, because I think it's really important. It plays a critical role in here. The only way that the R46 table works really well in terms of doing a one-for-one energy use comparison is, we have federal minimum gas appliances that are 80 or ish percent efficient, and we have heat pumps that are 200, 300, 400% efficient. And so if you assume those are in the basic building, without a fuel normalization, you're requiring extra efficiency out of heat pump buildings that you're not requiring out of gas buildings. So that's why I think it's really important to have a fuel normalization table in the code. All right, so I guess, are there any questions about how we set up? My suggestions for how we set up is we cover the different pathways separately. Go ahead, Lisa.
Actually, my question is not related to your question. So should I?
That's okay. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Okay. So I do actually have a general question. So both for residential and commercial, there were some proposals that the State Building Code Council rejected because we're introducing topics that were outside the scope of what we're supposed to be looking at. There is one proposal in the list for commercial right now, which feels like it's kind of on the edge of that, if not more directly. That I'm not sure why it was not rejected, because it does encompass a little bit. It seems like it's outside of the scope, and so I was just curious how those decisions were made, and if it's something that we can consider for some of the proposals we'll be looking at today, on whether it's outside the scope or not.
So staff, with legal counsel and a small amount of my input, kind of made decisions based on what was filed in or what the motion was in the council level. I mean, at this point, we can discuss it, even if you think it's slightly outside, as far as I'm concerned. If you think we shouldn't discuss it, you could state that and make a motion to reject it. But at this point, it's on the list that was sent to all tag members, so I feel like it's kind of part of what we're going to discuss.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. That's helpful.
But if tag members can make motions to do things. In the last one, an initial motion was made to dismiss a lot of proposals without hearing from them, and I didn't like the idea of that proposal, because we're here as a deliberative body. But if there's reasons not to consider a proposal, let's have a discussion on them. David, ready?
Yeah, thanks. You mentioned at the beginning of this meeting kind of reference to a fuel normalization table.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Just want to make clear that we don't have that in the commercial code, right?
Okay. Sorry about that. That was a holdover.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Patrick.
I would just like everybody in the group to know that 2 of my large clients have hired me to analyze both walk-up buildings, which fall under the residential code, and buildings that fall under the commercial code. So I went ahead and did that and applied the new code to their projects. And on the commercial side, then they costed them out, both of them. And these people are professional estimators. That's what they do for a living. And On the commercial side, on a 100-unit apartment, this new code adds $1.5 million to that building. So as we progress and fix these things up, and everybody talks affordable housing all over the news, you might want to keep that number in mind. Just sharing some facts.
Thanks, Patrick. Irina.
Hi, I'm a little late getting back, and if I missed roll call, I am here.
Okay, thanks, Irina. Chris sounded a little worried. Greg Johnson, you have the floor.
Just a quick thing to see if maybe this might speed it along a little bit this afternoon. What if we talked about by code section in lieu of by proposal, and then we jump from proposal to proposal and just focus on that section and then move on to the next section? Because it's quite a bit to intermingle a bunch of code sections all together.
Yeah, I guess my reason, Greg, for that was that some of the proposals are comprehensive. You make a tweak here, you probably should make a tweak there. And so to get the interactive effects, it made kind of more sense, to me at least, to consider whole proposals. I don't know. That's kind of how I approached it.
Well, I defer to you on whatever you want to do. I just offering a suggestion.
Okay. Yeah, and I think actually in my notes, what I'd written down was that maybe we actually, for the commercial, we start by just striking certain language, and then we get to the C406 table after that, because I think there was it seemed like clear that we could do that. So maybe we do that when we get there. Irina, you still have your hand up. I'm assuming you meant to take it down. Eric, you have the floor.
Yeah, real quick. Shell, you mentioned that we potentially have 3 different pathways or items that you'd like to go over, which was the prescriptive path, I would think the total building path, and then I think the path you were referring to was Dwayne Johnlin's path.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Okay. I just would like to establish the end game at the end of this meeting, what you would like to see. Is it a vote? You know, I sat through the residential side, and I think that would be helpful for everybody in the room, just to see where we can get by at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, what I would love is to send at least one option under prescriptive, at least one option under building performance. I think the Dwayne option, we can discuss whether that's a good option or not. So I have no recommendation on whether we pass that or not, but all the other ones, we have multiple proposals that kind of talk about them. And then that we also address chapter 5 existing buildings. And those are, I'm trying to pull out the chapter 5 bits from everything else, because I think they can be handled separately. That's what I would love. Whether this group can adequately debate everything and get through it all is an open question that we're going to see. But yeah, I think that's what I'd love to do. And I was thinking for this one, starting with the building performance would probably be a good way to approach it.
Great.
So go ahead.
I think we should just go right into it then.
Yep. Yeah, I think yep. Okay, so let's go into pathway 1, building performance. There are 3 kind of proposals: 036, 040, and 026. So why don't we start with 36? Johnny, are you here?
I am.
Okay, you're up, and then we'll talk about and then Greg Johnson and 040, and then Ian Casey and 026. Because those, and if anybody has other proposals that are about the C407 path, let me know. But those are the ones that I picked out that are part of that path.
Thank you so much. So Yeah, the basis of my proposal is basically to remove the EPCA risk without changing the stringency of the code. So basically still trying to get the energy efficiency gains that we were getting from what we were trying to do in the last code update, while allowing for a pathway that would allow for the installation of minimum efficiency products that are EPCA, so covered products. I did this by well, first I had to change the general definition for district energy. That's because of a downstream impact of something that I do in C406. So we can just move on from that part. I did strike the ventilation for group R2 occupancy. This is strictly a code cleanup language thing. It was requested that I do this because it's actually repeated in a different portion of the code. And David Reddy can comment on that portion, but basically this is only code cleanup. It doesn't actually change any impact of the code. And if people are really concerned about this, we can keep it in. But I was just, somebody mentioned, can you please do this in your proposal too as code cleanup? And I said, sure. So.
All right, let's move on. We're not out here for code cleanup as much as we might like to do.
I've had 3 emails about it, so I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay.
So this strikes some mandatory requirements for the heat pump section, which is C403.1.4. And if you keep scrolling down, strikes a mandatory requirement for heat pump water heaters by adding in the except for C404.2.1. That's the heat pump water heater requirement. That effectively makes this now a prescriptive requirement instead of a mandatory requirement. So if you are doing the total building performance standard approach, you are now allowed to install minimum covered products using the C406 section. Continue scrolling down. So we changed, sorry, C407 I meant. We changed the way in which C407 is structured so that it's based on site energy use versus carbon. That's specifically because of the EPCA portion that says that when you are trying to compare 2 different options, like one pathway to another, that it should be based on a 1-to-1 equivalent based on energy or energy cost. So we are being extra careful here by changing this. This actually was not mentioned in the Rivera lawsuit, which is like currently like stated the sections of the code that are of concern. We're being conservative in changing that too, just to match with EPCA. If you keep scrolling down. With that, we are striking the carbon emissions factor table. This doesn't have huge impact to the code because the actual emissions per MMBTU for electricity and natural gas are practically the same. It's 0.44 for electricity and 0.39 for natural gas per MMBTU. So it's a site energy and emissions are almost the same. So it doesn't really have a huge impact. We did, if you keep scrolling down, we did have PNNL rerun the numbers though for the building performance factors because we did change it from carbon to be now based off of site energy. As you can see, there is slight changes to those different building performance factors due to that.
And these are, you're saying these are the same building, it's just the BPF is different?
Yes.
Is okay. So it's the same stringency. So you're
Yes. Same
Okay.
exact stringency.
okay, thanks.
And then we made edits to the low carbon district energy use section. So that is compared off of site energy use and not by carbon emission factors. Keep scrolling down. And then finally in C503.4 to C503.5, we explicitly allow for the building performance option to be allowed for alterations, it's already in there for additions. So that makes it to where the C500 section can use a performance pathway, which allows for minimum cover products to be installed. And then finally, we just made an editorial edit on Appendix D because it referenced a table that we struck, which is C407.3, the carbon emissions factor, and now becomes its own table. Yeah, that's the basics of it. More than happy to discuss further. I have like a bunch of supplementary like diagrams and explanations legally if people care about.
I'm guessing we do care about that, but
Yeah.
Eric, your hand is still up. Gary.
Thanks, Joe. I still don't think this meets the intent and the spirit of EPCA. It forces anybody who wants to use gas to go to the performance path. It does not allow any prescriptive path if somebody wants to use gas. I think that's an undue hardship, and it will basically force builders to use or not be able to use covered products. So I think there's still an EPCA issue here by pushing everybody to the performance path. Secondly, just because EPCA makes some reference to site energy, I don't think that's automatically translated to the way that it's being used here. Certainly, some ASHRAE standards include tables for both site and source energy as options. When comparing different energy sources, the only fair way to do it, the only proper way to do it is to use source energy. And I'll go back and use some of the numbers that Gregory had provided before. Average combustion electricity efficiency of 39% for a Vista would basically render a 2.57 heat pump to be equivalent to about 100% efficiency on a source energy basis. And so it's just not a fair comparison, not an equal comparison when comparing different energy sources using site energy. So those are the two problems I have with this. If both of the heat pump, space heating and water heating sections were struck, along with this proposal, we might be getting closer to something that, number one, will work and avoid the EPCA preemption. But I think just doing this and not striking the other will not get you there. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. David Reddy.
I think so. I think this proposal makes sense. Again, I point to California as a point of reference where they have a prescriptive requirement for heat pumps for a lot of building types and a lot of climate zones, but you can use the performance path to get around that requirement. Now, again, California has not been sued to our knowledge, and I guess that's always a possibility, but I know that they have a pretty large legal team that has thought about this a lot. So I guess I think this is pretty well founded in meeting the preemption requirements. I kind of do share your concern though about the energy metric. I believe to take it to the extent that there is an argument probably to look at some sort of source, although source, at least in California, accounts for things like methane leakage in distribution and it's at wells. So it has to be a pretty comprehensive source evaluation, and also look at the future impact of the grid. So anyways, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, David. Eric Bedell, you are up.
Sorry about that. I had a little technical difficulties. I just wanted to understand this because after hearing something from Gary, I actually changed my view of this proposal, Johnny, and I wanted to ask you a question on that. So what Gary just said was if you wanted to go to natural gas for heating purposes, that you need to go through the 407 route. Is that a correct statement? What Gary just said?
Yes, that is how California currently is structured through Title 24 for their heat pump requirements. And that is how I want to say it's like F2A is in EPCA. You set a total building performance standard like amount. Basically, you have to hit this site EUI that's set through a baseline, which you dictate through a prescriptive baseline, and then you allow for performance approach.
Okay.
So commercial buildings much more likely to use a performance standard, much more likely to be able to build an energy model.
Yeah, that I understood this as a different proposal originally. So what Gary did say, excuse me, is correct. I tried writing things down because again, I'm trying to get smarter to understand everything, right? I'm probably not as smart related to the nuances, the minutia of the code, right? So so you can't go prescriptive underneath this. Natural gas, you could go or can you go prescriptive underneath this?
You go prescriptive, you have to do a heat pump. And if you wanted to install a fossil fuel appliance, like a covered fossil fuel appliance, then you would build a
Have to go modeling. Yeah. I'm going to agree with that with Gary on this one. Yeah, I don't think that actually meets what I think the EPCA guidelines are trying to tell us right now with okay, thank you very much for that.
And just to reiterate that's exactly how California has done it.
Well, we have to understand, Johnny, we're not California, we're Washington. I get that, but I don't really care about other people, how they do it. I care about how Washington does it.
They're both regulated under federal law, and that like California set up their code in order to apply with EPCA by creating a prescriptive baseline and a performance pathway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Johnny.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Greg Johnson, you are next.
I was just going to say that eliminating the possibility of going through a prescriptive path, I don't think meets EPCA at all, especially when you consider small commercial entities. They don't have the budget to necessarily do energy modeling. I mean, when you're building tens or hundreds of $1 million, multiple 100,000 square foot facilities, sure, you can incorporate the cost to do energy modeling easily in a big giant building. But when you're talking about small commercial, they don't have the budget to do that always, and so their only option is prescriptive path. And so I don't say that as flying. So in order to consider this, we'd have to first vote on prescriptive path changes before I'd even be willing to entertain this as an alternate proposal. But with that said, I think you have some good ideas in here, Johnny. So after we consider prescriptive path, I think with some massaging, we might be able to have this as a secondary. And that's just where my experience lands.
Thanks, Gregory. Shane, you are up.
Yeah. I guess what I just want to say, I would disagree that in consideration of this proposal, that would force having to go to performance rather than the prescriptive. And the reason I'm going to say that is, so, I mean, you could go like, well, if we included prescriptive stuff into this proposal, then you'd be kind of completing that. But I don't think that's a realistic expectation to make on the proposal, as much as I wouldn't expect any proposals regarding a prescriptive path to have to also include stuff in the performance path as a part of that single proposal. So I would look at this only for the merits of it itself. And
and keeping in mind that, you know, section 401, it's an option. So it's not that there's nothing about this proposal that I see that makes it so that you cannot go the prescriptive path. The question is whether is this going to be a friendlier path than a prescriptive path, and that should be addressed through other proposals, not a burden on this proposal itself.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Shane. I have Lisa next and then Poppy.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Shane had to say. So this is a comprehensive proposal, and it does create a clear path to go total building performance. I also, we have to kind of step back and look at both the space heating and water heating requirements. They don't solely ban fossil fuels, but there are obviously the exceptions have their narrow band. And so, you know, I do recognize that would pose a challenge to a lot of projects. One comment I will put out there, though, just for everybody to consider, and this is just based on the technical support that we provide across the state, that the total building performance path is still considered a minority path in the state. And so I think having a clear prescriptive path is important. Most jurisdictions don't have the bandwidth in-house to handle receiving an energy model. And so that is a detail that would have to be addressed if this was sufficiently narrow that it would push a lot of projects over to the performance path. So those are some things to take into consideration, and underlines the importance of having two clear paths that are achievable.
Thanks, Lisa. Let's hear from Poppy.
Thanks, Joe. So, just one second. So I feel that this this proposal really comprehensively addresses the preemption risks, and it does it with a minimum impact on code stringency and compliance with our own 70% mandate. I think there are always going to be trade-offs and also particularities about our own context, but just because the performance path right now is a minority path does not make it non-compliant with EPCA. And so that's really what we're focused on, and I don't think that we should be conflating those necessarily. And it may be that as our code gets more and more stringent, moving toward our 70% reduction, there does need to be more of a move toward a performance path, and we need to think about how we reduce the costs for doing that type of modeling and going that approach. And that is what California has done in having a simplified modeling approach, and a much higher percentage of commercial buildings go the modeling path. I also think that this maintains options, and that is what is necessary to be compliant with EPCA. And there are trade-offs, and it may require some additional efficiency on the envelope, et cetera, but those types of trade-offs have traditionally been in the code since close to the very beginning. So it's really about maintaining the option, even if that option might not be desirable for certain people. So I'm also just wondering, there have been a number of statements saying that it does not meet the requirements of EPCA. And I want to have a full understanding of this. I want this to be compliant with EPCA myself. And so I'm asking this really sincerely. What is it about it that does not meet the requirements of EPCA, in consideration of what I just said, in the sense that there can and will be trade-offs, and as long as there are options, it is in compliance with EPCA. So just wondering if the proposer might have an idea on that, or if anybody else who's made that comment might have an idea, just so we can have a more holistic perspective.
Thanks, Poppy. And I do have Johnny next on my list. So Johnny, if you want to respond, and then anybody else, and then I have Patrick, Gary, and Kevin on the list, and they can respond as well. Noted that nobody in here is lawyers and nobody sits on as a circuit judge. So these are all individuals' opinions on EPCA and how it relates to EPCA. So go ahead, Johnny.
Thank you. Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. A lot of talk about EPCA today. Can you see my screen?
I see Cornell
Yes.
Law School.
Great. This is the portion of EPCA that we are been talking a lot about. It is the exceptions for certain building code requirements. 3, it dictates the 7 different things a building code an energy code must comply with in order to get an exception to EPCA. The code must permit a builder to meet the energy consumption or energy target. Basically, you can set an energy target for the building. You can set an EUI, like 70% below 2006 would be an EUI. You're allowed to do that. And you can, as long as the covered products of the energy efficiency can be installed, like you're allowed to install, as long as you have pathways that allow for those covered products to be installed while still meeting the total building performance requirement. So 60%, 70%, whatever you want from the 2006 baseline, then that also complies with EPCA. The credit for energy consumption allowed by the target or by installing covered products has to be compared on a 1-to-1 basis for energy usage. So you have a baseline as long as you compare 1-to-1 energy use from that baseline, and it allows for that minimum efficiency product to be installed, then you comply with EPCA. I'm not requiring more than federal minimum efficiency heat pump. I'm saying you can put a federal minimum efficiency heat pump in as your prescriptive baseline, and you can put a federal minimum efficiency gas under the performance pathway, which is allowed under EPCA, but you have to prove that your building is as efficient as that baseline building. That's allowed under EPCA. That's like explicitly allowed under EPCA. And I don't know how else to say this, but there's been a lot of stuff being said, and I read this law a lot in the last 3 months, as I'm sure a lot of other people have, and I just wanted to have that. If you actually look at the Rivera lawsuit, they explicitly basically state that the problem with the code is that there isn't a performance pathway approach. They go through and they say the appliance do not allow, let's see here. Anyway, I could get into it, but there's about 9 different requirements that are things that are said under the Rivera lawsuit that were basically talking about, you don't have a performance pathway. That makes this not legal by EPCA. We now have a performance pathway. It is now legal under EPCA. If they had stated that as you can't do a prescriptive baseline, they would have said that. They didn't, because they knew that they would lose in court. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. I guess it's always great to go to the source for this, but I think suggesting, yeah, I don't know. It's none of us are lawyers or offering, but we're offering somewhat legal opinions. So it's always good to go to the source. Thank you for walking us through that. I guess, Patrick, you are up next on my list.
Well, I don't think it meets EPCA, and Johnny, you're not an attorney. So we'll let the attorneys sort that part out. It's very narrow. It's very expensive. I mean, in the last year, I've done 2 Taco Bells, 3 Starbucks, and they shouldn't have to do a C407 model if they want to have a backup gas furnace. You need a different path. It's more flexible. Second, Johnny, I have a question for you. What is the baseline in your proposal? What's it based on?
Say federal minimum heat pump.
There you go. So you want to weigh, so you have to weigh an inefficient, so to speak, gas furnace against a high efficiency heat pump. That's a pretty steep hill.
Just a second, Johnny, the baseline in the C407 option, isn't that ASHRAE 90.1 2004?
That's not my understanding.
That would be pretty old, Shell.
Well, so in
It's the
2016,
prescriptive. Okay.
it's not the 90.1 baseline?
I don't think so.
Because right now,
Yes, it is.
it is what?
I'm sorry, I could wait for my, wait for my turn, but yeah, the performance path in the commercial section is based upon ASHRAE standard 90.1 appendix G. And so,
What year? What year, Gary?
well, that's a good question. I don't think it
So-
is referenced here unless it says the most current, most current, but if
So
it's
the
most
reference
current-
stand, go ahead, David.
Yeah, it is 90.1 2019 is the reference standard that we, and the appendix G performance method, kind of the new version, which came out in 2016, establishes the baseline model basically complying with 90.1 2004 requirements for the baseline design. Now, the system type is dependent on climate zone, and you may have a furnace as your baseline, or you may have a heat pump, depending on what climate zone you're in. But it is 90.1 2004 in terms of energy efficiency metrics. That's why we have BPFs that are on the order of 50% of the energy or performance of the 90.1. That was the whole purpose of the new rating method.
Thanks for correcting me, David.
Real question is what is the baseline in Johnny's proposal?
It would be 90.1.
What year?
2004. So, yes, the baseline for all versions of ASHRAE 90.1 going forward is ASHRAE 90.1 2004, and then the code specifies through what's called the BPF or building performance factor, the fraction of that energy use that a compliant building needs to hit. So 0.56 means you need to be 44% better than ASHRAE 90.1 2004 appendix G, for example.
Okay, that answers my question. So I think the bar is pretty high.
Okay, so that, Patrick, thank you. I think I have Gary next.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, just a couple of things, maybe in response a little bit to Shane's comments, concern. My comments had to do is by only relying on the performance path would not allow a prescriptive pathway to use natural gas for space heating or water heating. Because in R403, 0.1.4, use of electric resistance in fossil fuel fired heating equipment, heating energy shall not be provided by electric resistance or fossil fuel. So it's explicitly disallowed in the prescriptive path. So if the builder wants to use natural gas equipment, he cannot follow the prescriptive path in the code. He will have to go through the performance path through the code. In addition, the changes being made here would make it extremely difficult to comply by using natural gas because of the use of the site energy target rather than an energy cost target, as ASHRAE 90.1 uses the emissions target previously was not any better. So this is, and I won't comment on EPCA concerns because I'm just concerned that there's still issues here. And really, if this body wants to be best assured that they might not run afoul of EPCA, they should strike the heat pump proposals. Thank you.
And just to be clear, I think this is Shane's point, is this proposal says nothing about the prescriptive requirement for heat pumps. It just removes that requirement from the modeling path. So
yeah,
I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that, Joe. What I'm saying
Okay.
is the performance pathway would be the only pathway. If somebody wanted to use natural gas equipment, they could not use the prescriptive pathway. And that's still a restriction in my mind. Whether or not it's an EPCA issue is up to the lawyers and the Jesuits to decide.
Yeah, I guess if the tag passed this one and then also passed some prescriptive revision that we also thought was EPCA de-risked, then the council and the MVE committee would have options as to what the council does. And I guess that would be my preference, is to pass multiple things. And I guess I just want to say this is not mutually exclusive with any prescriptive changes. This just takes C407 and, in the eyes of the proponent and probably many other people, remove some risk from EPCA compliance. So this is not mutually exclusive with other proposals that are being considered. Kevin, I had you with your hands down. David Reddy, I had you next.
Yeah, I guess question for Johnny. I mean, I do think on this respect of the EPCA concern that California is an important kind of parallel, but they do use source energy as a metric. How do you rectify that in the context of your proposal that chooses site energy? Like, is it your thought that there is a preemption concern there?
Yeah, so I don't want to share my screen again because I don't want to waste people's time, but if you click on the definition of energy use through the federal code, it goes to a different source and it clearly states
that I'm aware of that.
Energy at the appliance. So that's why I changed it. Was because it said site energy. It doesn't say anything about carbon or source energy. I know that California defines it differently, and I appreciate that they are being creative around a very old law.
Yeah, I think the one term that I kind of hang on is that term equivalent site energy or equivalent energy use, and that could be an important kind of distinction in how we evaluate what is energy, kind of along the sourcing, the idea of source versus site. Anyways, sounds like that's all.
Thanks, David. I have Lisa up next.
Hi, thank you. I have to say I'm struggling with this one because I'm very much in support of having a performance path like this. There is precedent in the Energy Code, of course, where a project could model their way out of prescriptive requirements. You know, we had this back with economizer. Back on, I don't know what code cycle that was when that was first introduced, and then we did it again with DOAS. So this is a path that the code has gone down before, and it's worked. That said, I think that I'm listening to the comments of the other members with regards to the burden of, especially smaller projects, that for a smaller project to go the performance path can be a pretty big lift. And so that could be problematic. And then also, as I mentioned, jurisdictions are going to need support if they're going to receive more performance-based permit applications. And so these are just realities we need to take into consideration. If we decide that this is the best way to go, then that is something that we'll have to talk about, or whoever makes those decisions on how to support the jurisdictions, that will be something that will need to be addressed.
Thanks, Lisa. Shane, you're up next.
All right, so I had a couple questions. One would be, as the tag, if we don't vote this through, does the SBCC get any consideration over it at all?
The MVE committee or council can, to the best of my knowledge, revive a proposal even if we don't vote it forward. But when I hear MVE and council members talk, they say if the tag votes it forward, that carries some weight. So, yeah, so that's,
Okay.
so it can be revived later.
Okay, because I guess, is there ability when you vote something forward to do it with any type of stipulation that, like in this case, we're not really supposed to be making that legal decision. We're just, and that's my gathering of my role. So if in doing that is in this exercise would be appropriate to be able to vote something through with that restriction that says what we want is for that ruling to occur, and then we could look at it again prior to final passage. I mean, is there any way we could put that type of restriction? Because
what kind of ruling are you talking about?
just so if the question of EPCA, like, is this addressed or not? That was my initial note that I had as well. I was kind of neutral, but I didn't know if it really addressed that. And so if, in knowing that the only way we could get that answer is to have it go to the next level, is there a way to kind of do that, but then, also have that request that, realistically, the tag would still, some of the things like, my other question for the proponent is to just get a good understanding is by going to these, the built with the changes anyway, getting rid of the carbon emission factors, all that, if it's actually equivalent in terms of energy use based on what the 2020 code was trying to do, just, again, as they're trying to address the EPCA concerns. So obviously we can discuss that now, but a little bit of my question is like, can we kick it in order to get that response before getting deeper into it for those other purposes?
The proponent has already said that this proposal is equivalent in terms of energy performance to the 2021 energy code version of it. So some analysis has been done and it's equivalent. I think to answer that question, to answer the larger question of can we attach notes to our approval, we can. But the idea is the tag was convened at the request of the council to provide language so that the council can consider that language in combination with lawyers to make those kinds of, big legal decisions. But we don't have that legal counsel to review anything until we pass it on to the MVE or the council.
So,
go ahead.
Well, so then I guess in formulating my thoughts more, I guess what I would say to the rest of the tag is that, as far as I see, there's only two proposals that touch the performance provisions. And I believe the other one does not necessarily directly conflict with this. It kind of touches some of the same components, but, probably in a way could be conjoined. And so if without anything else is going to address the performance path, if this one doesn't get approved, and subsequently is not resurrected by the SBCC, then that's a portion of the energy code that's not going to get addressed in terms of mitigating that risk.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's correct. I have Poppy next.
Thanks, Jill. I just wanted to make a couple points and maybe provide some context. I definitely have sympathy for a desire to have flexibility and minimize the impact of these code changes as we move along. But some of the issues that are being pointed out, I really feel like they relate more to the stringency of our code due to the 70% mandate. And that combined with the relatively low efficiency of combustion space and water heating. And so the issues with this inefficiency of the combustion equipment and the additional efficiency and costs do not really go away by just allowing natural gas in the prescriptive path. So we are moving towards a 70% mandate. And for example, if we allow gas equipment in the prescriptive path, there would need to be additional efficiency required, similar to what we see in the residential side. So if we make that change and we don't adopt something like this, and we then allow the combustion equipment on the prescriptive side, we have to make those additional changes. It may be something that is in the additional options or some other place, but we're really moving in the direction where it is going to be more and more difficult to have this inefficient equipment in buildings. So I don't know if that changes what we do right now, but some of this really doesn't have to do with the EPCA compliance requirements. It really has to do with wanting to maintain that flexibility, but that flexibility is really difficult when we have this increasing stringency. So I really support this performance-based approach. I think it's the simplest and most effective approach to addressing the EPCO requirements. And we do, as a body, need to start talking more about creative and more flexible approaches to meeting our 70% mandate at the lowest cost. And it's not going to be easy, but it's kind of separate from what we're talking about here with EPCA.
Thanks, Poppy. I'm wondering if we should hear from the other folks who proposed something under the building performance pathway. And then we can come back to this discussion, of course, but just so that we have looked at all the proposals, I feel like that would be good to do. And I see, so Greg Johnson, you had proposed 040. If you want to cover that right now, that also perfects the building performance pathway. So why don't you cover that, and we have Ian Casey cover 026, and then we can get back to the discussion we were just having.
Yeah, so, well, 040 is essentially the same info that I had covered in the residential morning tag, which I presume most people from commercial tag probably attended and watched that. So I don't know if for time's sake, if it's worthwhile, but essentially the summary, the nutshell summary of that is the source side energy efficiency is not what we're assuming. And so that's why the carbon emission factors weren't accurate. So, and I think it'd be best, instead of rehashing all that, anyone who missed the residential morning could go watch it on the video recording of that. So that's to that proposal. what
And
I,
this is primarily this is just the table, right? Just changing
yeah,
the
just the
electricity factor.
table. And then there was adding a sub note saying that utilities, since really the value varies across the state by utility. And so being realistic, we as a code council, it's important that we give a value, but if the utility goes through the work to actually provide the actual value, it's probably important that we use the actual value for the specific region as opposed to just a statewide value that is inaccurate for part of the state and accurate for the other half. Or so that was the subnote B that's kind of cut off at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah, and just to refresh everybody's memory, I think it was it, I forget who put in the proposal, but it was the proposal for the carbon emissions factor 0.44 was based on a forward-looking projections based on state policy and interactive effects with other states. So that's where the 0.44 number came from, as in as an emission factor for forward-looking based on the laws we have in the state that require electricity to be largely carbon-free by 2045, and some would argue by 2030 as well. And the fact that the buildings tend to be long-lived assets, and equipment types tend to be long-lived assets, even if the equipment is not necessarily a long-lived,
And I appreciate that. I totally appreciate that view from working at the utility and working with the systems. I can tell you that's more aspirational than reality. How Avista and a lot of other utilities are planning on achieving that 2045 goal is buying carbon RECs. And so that's not actually meaning they're not producing gas to produce electricity. They're just buying carbon offsets. And the carbon offsets actually don't decrease your carbon footprint. It just is money that the state, about $1 billion a year, that they'll get to spend on special projects to prove out energy efficiency and stuff. So it doesn't really pencil out. In reality, it's a little wishful thinking. I wish it were so, but that's just on that. And also the length of time it takes to build things, where it doesn't, the best way to get there that I can think of is if we built some nuclear, but that takes like a decade to build. So
motion to accept this proposal.
Let's consider the other proposal, the last proposal. I mean, you can.
That's fine, Shell.
We are going to do this party of three, and so Ian Casey, you had proposal 026. Are you around?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead and. Oh, wait a minute. Was this? Okay, yeah, this is the only other one that's on the C407 section. So I wanted to consider all of them before we.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And this will be pretty quick. I think, as you can see, the only code change language recommended here is to strike C403 1.4, which would make use of electric resistance and fossil fuel HVAC heating equipment. Just strikes it and makes it an option in the prescriptive path overall. So in the spirit of trying to mitigate EPCA risk, I think this accomplishes that goal. So that's really all there is to say about this proposal.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Eric, I guess.
Yes, we could start with this. Like, we could start with this proposal. I mean, to move this along, right? Motion to accept Ian's proposal for 7.2.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to, and this is basically just striking out 403.1.4. And does it do anything else? Okay, it's just striking 403.1.4 from the C407 path. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Does the maker of the motion, Eric, do you want to speak to your motion?
No, let's just start the roll call or the yays and nays. I guess you could.
Well,
However
no,
you wanna
we
do
have
that.
to debate a motion before we vote on it.
Okay.
Unless somebody wants to call the question, but that
Call the
requires a
question.
2/3 majority, which would,
Call
I
the
don't think-
question.
okay, somebody's going to call the question. Does somebody want to second that? That requires a 2/3 majority. Does anybody want a second? Okay, call the question dies for lack of a second. Johnny. Sorry, no, Eric, do you want to speak to your motion?
No.
Okay. Okay. Patrick, do you want to speak to your second of the motion?
I think we should just do it. It's useful and it satisfies the EPCA requirements. That's how it is up here.
Okay. Johnny.
Keep in mind, there's other checks and balances along the way. There's the MVE, and there's the whole council. So just getting it up there on the docket and moving it along so that others can look at it is important.
Okay. Johnny, did you have?
Never mind.
Okay. David, ready.
So just to confirm, I'm sorry, we're just voting on striking this one section of the table, right?
Correct. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I am not seeing hands up at this point, and anybody can put up their hands at this point. Tag members or members of the public. But I think we'll vote soon. Poppy, go ahead.
I just had a question. Can you just clarify exactly what we're voting on? We just went through this one pretty quickly and the motion was made.
Yes.
And, yeah.
So the motion is only on the proposal in front of us. And the only thing the proposal does is proposal 026. The only thing it does is strike out one of the mandatory measures under the C407 total building performance path. And what it strikes out is C4 3.1.4, which is used for electric resistance and fossil fuel fired HVAC heating equipment. That's the only thing it does. So with that, let's take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, we have now passed 026. We have two other proposals on the table that someone could do something with. Raise your hand and make a motion if you want to, or we can continue discussing them. Greg Johnson.
I make a motion to pass 040.
Okay,
Second,
we have a motion and a second to pass 040. Greg, do you want to speak to your motion?
Well, I just spoke to it a moment ago. I mean, it's adjusting the carbon
You don't need to
emissions.
speak more.
Yeah.
You don't need to speak more. That's a formality.
Thank you.
Yep. And then Patrick, do you want to speak to your second?
I know what Greg's position is at Avista, and he's been on some other offline meetings with us, and what he's done is good work and it's accurate work. And he actually explained it to us in a separate meeting. So it all makes sense, and Avista is very attuned to what they're doing on this subject.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak for or against the motion? Johnny?
I'm still missing the reasoning on how this has to do with EPCA, or it seems mostly to do with trying to have different people's opinions on carbon emission factor of electricity, and I don't see how it has anything to do with covered products or equivalent 1-by-1 energy use, etc.
I think, Johnny, the difference is some of us work in a modeling world and play with models, and others of us work in the real world. And Greg's proposal is real world stuff from Avista, not modeling things and playing with stuff. That's why it's a good proposal.
Okay, Mike Fowler. Mike Fowler, I can't hear you if you're talking.
Sorry, thank you. I was got a double mute on my system. I'm against it because the latest information published in eGrid, which is from the EPA, and for our grid subregion for the year of 2021, the emissions rate is 0.63. That is what it currently was in 2021. And going up to 0.8 is well above that. So I feel with that future look that was noted earlier, that 0.44 in terms of where the grid is going is in line with current 0.63 going towards 0.44.
Thanks, Mike. Poppy.
Yes, I just wanted to speak against this motion. I also don't think that it is really germane to the EPCA discussion, and I wanted to make a correction on a statement about the Clean Energy Transformation Act. Something was said about a Vista using offsets in 2045, but the CETA standard requires carbon neutral by 2030, which is the only time that those offsets are allowed. And it has to be 80% zero emissions, and you can only offset about 20%. By 2045, it has to be totally zero emissions. And that means that the utilities have to supply Washington customers with electricity that is 100% renewable or non-emitting with no provisions for offsets. So, but I also do feel like this is just revisiting a debate that we already had during the main code cycle process.
I tend to agree that this is not as germane as everything else we're discussing to the EPCA thing, but it was accepted, and so we're discussing it. Henry, you're up.
Yeah, just want to agree that this doesn't have much at all to do with EPCA. The original proposal, I think it was Department of Commerce, was actually one of the most thorough technically that we had a chance to review. I think it kind of blew a lot of people away, the amount of detail that went into it. So if Patrick, you're claiming it's random people with computers doing models, that's incredibly incorrect. I think you were on that call, so I expect you might remember that. If not, I encourage you to go reread that proposal. And yeah, this has nothing to do with EPCA. It's clearly, honestly, special interest from a gas utility to drive down the CO2 output of electricity. It's at best backwards looking and not currently related to the grid. So it's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. Greg Johnson.
Just responded to a couple things. One is I work on the electric side of, I mean, yes, the Vista has gas and electric. And if we had to rebuild, upgrade our electric lines in order to meet all the future demand of converting to gas, it actually benefited our shareholders hugely. So the fight of having actual accurate numbers is actually so it benefits customers and not driving up rates. And then also, you are correct. It was 2030. I had the date wrong for when the RECs are the carbon offsets are purchased. But I mean, it's still same thing. We don't really have a solution yet to get our down to zero, which so it's aspirational, and we're like all utilities are trying to figure out how to do that, because when the sun stops shining and the wind stops blowing, if the you have to make up the power somehow, and people aren't going to be happy if the power grid just shuts off because the green sources just disappear. So
thanks, Greg. Hoyt, you are up.
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me. The one thing I like to mention on this code thing, when they put in the word must be used instead, that comes into the building departments for enforcing and energy stuff, that every single time you're going to have to know what that CO If there was a possibility to make a change to be may be used instead, that would be, they would be able to submit that to the building official and be able to have an alternate to be able to use it. Using the word must means every single time it's going to have to be verified throughout every place in the state when they're using this option. I think that's a little too restrictive.
Thanks, Hoyt. Andrea.
Hey, Andrea here from BIW again. Been kind of silent on this one just because I'm not a voting member, but just wanted to remind everyone that the charging language from the SBCC was EPCA adjacent. And so with that, I'm just going to leave that comment in this conversation. Thanks.
Thanks. Shane, you are up.
Yeah, I'm kind of piggybacking on Hoyt's comment with that that footnote B. Well, I guess if that wasn't there, I'd be more supportive of the proposal. It's funky code language. I mean, it really should say something to the effect of permitted to be used where approved by the code official, rather than must be used. It must be used. It's just, I mean, it's just not appropriate code language. But it also does what Hoyt says. It basically makes that to be the case without any approval. And it just generally feels weird to me for a state energy code to be looking at individual utility data in each jurisdiction. It's not, and you might have multiple utilities serving a single jurisdiction. So,
okay. Thanks, Shane. Okay, Henry, your hand is up. Okay, well, oh, Eric, go ahead.
Gregory, this is your proposal, right? I mean, would you be open to having a tag member change that per Shane's input, right? That value may be used instead as per AHJ or something of that language.
I could be open. I mean, if we kept the units as proposed in
The
the
units would
proposal,
stay the same, right? It would say 0.8,
then
0.80.
yeah, then I would be okay with that change.
What the change would be may be used when approved by the AHJ authority having jurisdiction. So that way,
You want to write that down, Krista, on the proposal, and then that we can see what we're voting on, and then I'll ask if the maker of the motion and second agree with that, and if so, then we'll get ready to vote on it. Is that Hoyt?
I would say the jurisdiction having authority.
Yeah, you would say AHJ. Yeah, exactly. That's it.
But you've got
that's
you've got an example in footnote A. I mean, it's approved by the code official.
Yeah, I think code official is good.
Yeah,
Code official. Yeah, that's fine.
I agree with Shane on that for the code official. That's the best way to do it.
All right, who made this motion?
I did. Motion
Okay.
to accept C407.3
Oh.
parentheses 1 with the approved changes,
Yeah.
or with the changes.
Did you make the original motion to approve 040?
I made the original motion.
Okay, so Greg, do you accept this?
I do accept.
Okay, and then who was the second on this? Was it Patrick?
Yes, it was me.
Okay, Patrick, do you think this is a good change as well?
I don't think we really need the approved by the code official. That's kind of useless language. People, I pull average of 55 energy permits a year, and the comments I get from code officials or lack of comments, especially on code, the 2018 version, I just don't think they're ever going to look at it or that it's needed. It's just,
okay. All right. Do you accept this change, or do we need a motion to make this change?
I would like to remove the approved by code official.
And then what would you say instead?
Well, we have be used instead of, and now it's to be used if approved by the code official.
May be used if approved by the code official.
May be used, and I think Shane had another option of, what was that, Shane?
I mean, I'm okay with how it is. May is not a friendly word to code writing, but so you typically say that it's permitted to be used.
Yeah, that's not that's good.
Would
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is permitted to be used. Yep. There you go.
Okay.
I
All
would
right.
be happy with that change. Permit is permitted to be used, period, and then
Okay.
And get
All
rid
right.
of the approved by the code official, because they aren't approving hardly anything these days. You know?
Okay, Greg, are you okay with what's
No,
on the
no.
screen?
I'm okay
Permitted
with
to
that.
be used. It still has to be
Good with
approved
it.
by the code official. You know. That's the code world that we're all in. That's in all the building codes that is in there. Permitted to use when approved by the building official.
Well,
So what we're
true.
saying,
That is not true.
And
We
well,
you don't want subjective language in a code. And when you use that language, that is subjective. And so the code,
But the only one that interprets the code is the building official. They're the only ones who have the authority to.
it's not true either.
Okay, I can see wordsmithing going on for hours here. We're all technical people and we love to wordsmith things. I think let's get a good enough solution, and then whoever cares about this can show up the MVE committee and make this the exact right bulletproof language. But I think we need to get a good enough option right now, and then the MVE can consider a slight tweak to the word change if we approve this. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Is permitted to be used is, okay. Are we ready to vote on this? Does anybody have anything additional to say about this particular code proposal 040 with some slight changes? I see Eric and Kevin's hand up. Do you have anything to say, either of you?
Yes. There was mention made of eGrid data being lower than this value. I believe, I've looked it up, but I believe that number is average emissions data. And as Greg spoke earlier in the residential tag portion of this meeting, that marginal emissions would be the more appropriate use. And eGrid uses that as I forget the exact title, non-base load, but I believe that would be more on par with this 0.80 number, and I believe it's actually higher than that.
Okay. All right, let's do a roll call vote on this. And the motion is to approve proposal 040, which changes the electricity carbon factor from 0.44 to 0.80 and adds a footnote B, which has been modified in this tag. So roll call vote.
Mike Fowler,
No.
Scott Henderson, are you there, Scott? Shane,
aye.
Ray,
Yes.
Lisa,
No.
Eric,
Yes.
Sarah,
Nay.
David Reddy,
No.
Gary,
Aye.
Irina,
No.
Poppy,
No.
Sean,
No.
Eric Olnon,
No.
Gavin,
No.
Patrick,
Yes.
Luke,
No.
Michael Kurtwright, Greg Johnson.
Yes.
Motion fails 10-6.
Okay. Are there other motions to be made or on? I guess there's one proposal left that we haven't made a motion and voted on. Does anybody want to make a motion on that proposal or make them up? Yeah. Does anybody want to make a motion on that proposal?
I'll make a motion. Maybe I'll make a motion to accept 36 with modification that includes 3, 11, 12, 13, 24, 25, and 29. So basically that's taking RMI's, Johnny's, and accepting it, but also merging in all the prescriptive path options. So that way it's more of a compromise.
All right, you blew my mind with all that. So
Do you want me to repeat it slowly, those numbers?
Please.
So Johnny's 36 with modification that it also includes 3, 11, 12, 13, 24, 25, and 29. And those were all the I mean, there was other, but yeah, those are the proposals that with modification. So it adds in all the prescriptive path changes.
Second.
okay, we have a motion on the floor. We haven't discussed any of those proposals, but I see where you're going with this. So okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm gonna wait until Krista's done writing. Okay, I think really to consider this motion, we need to consider the other proposals first, which means having proponents explain them and that kind of thing. As I stated earlier, my preference would be to forward to the MV and council options. And I guess this could be one option. Okay, well, I guess
Michelle, I have a question, a Robert's Rules question.
Sure.
Can a tag member at this point make a motion to table this proposal for now, or this motion? I don't know how that works, I'm sorry. But, can another tag member say, hey, we like this idea, however, we need to look at these other proposals first?
My understanding is the motion to table is always in order. I would have to look up the exact rules on, in fact, I'm looking them up right now on what the exact rules are that we're bound to.
If I may butt in, I believe a motion to table is superior to the main motion. So I think you're right. or takes precedence rather.
Yep. And then is it debatable then? I assume it's debatable, right?
I don't believe so.
It is not.
Is
It does
not
require a
debatable.
second.
Okay, is there a second to? Thank you, Kevin. Is there a second to the motion to table this motion?
Second.
Okay, we have no debate on this, so I guess let's do a roll call vote. And just to be clear, the main motion is to pass this proposal you see in front of you along with proposals 3, 11, 12, 13, 24, 25, and 29. That's the main motion. The motion to table is to take that motion and bring it up at a later date. And usually you need to say when in the motion to table, Lisa. So is it at the next meeting? Or is it until some other time?
Okay, I'll revise my motion. My motion is to table this proposal and bring it back up after all the other proposals that are being combined with this one have been reviewed by the TAG.
Okay.
So that could happen today. It could happen today if we have time.
Okay. And then Ray, do you continue to second that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the motion, is to table this until after we've considered all the other proposals. Okay, let's do a roll call vote on the motion to table.
Mike Fowler,
Yes.
Scott Henderson,
Aye.
Shane,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Eric Bedell,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
David Reddy,
Yes.
Harry Hickman,
Aye.
Irina,
Aye.
Poppy,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Eric Olnon,
Yes.
Gavin Tenold,
Yes.
Patrick Hayes,
Yes.
Luke Howard,
Yes.
and Greg Johnson.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, all right, I could have risked a voice vote on that one and saved a couple minutes. All right, are there any other motions before we move on to other proposals?
Does it, sorry, just a question. With this one being tabled, can there be other motions on it?
It's an interesting question, yeah.
May I put in?
Well, please, Kevin.
A motion to table takes precedence over all other motions except privileged motions, such as adjourning, recess, calls of order of the day, things like that. So no other motion can take precedence over a table. Oh, except that table, that's closed, excuse me. There can be other motions. What am I saying?
I guess if somebody wanted to move this forward without all of the other ones, kind of, I guess that was, or with, I don't know, with some other modifications or something like that. I guess that was kind of my understanding of perhaps the question. Gary, do you have a?
But that, I mean, that's why I'm confused, but that would be allowed. Because the motion, there was, the tabling was of motion to include all of those, not necessarily to table the entire proposal.
That was my understanding, was to table the motion, not the proposal. So I guess it would be, under that logic, it would be in order to, one could make a motion on this proposal that did not include those other proposals.
Wasn't the proposal to table only until we discussed all these things?
Yes.
Yes.
So
why
if
don't
we went,
start discussing them?
Well,
that wasn't that the crux of the motion there, is to table the main motion until we've had a chance to discuss all of these 3, 11, 12, 13, 24, 25, 29, and then come back to the main motion. And if we can do that before the end of the day today, then we take it off the table, we vote on it. That's what I understood the motion was. Is that correct?
Yes, that was the intent of my original motion.
And if we can't get to it today, it would have to be at our next meeting.
okay. Yeah, I guess I had figured we would discuss the C407 options, then we would discuss other options and other options. So I had assumed the motion to table was we would continue on these until we're done, and then we'd go to the prescriptive options next and vote on those. But that sounds like that's not the intent of the motion, Lisa.
Now maybe I'm confused, but my motion to table was just to pause voting on this proposal with all the other proposals that were to be combined with it, and until we've had an opportunity to review those supporting proposals that were going to be all packaged together.
Okay, and I guess what my thought was implied in that was, or was not, and immediately begin discussing those other proposals.
Yes.
Or not.
Yeah,
Okay.
that means we can jump into these other proposals, go through them, and then once we've all had an opportunity to see, hear the proponents' comments on their proposals, then we can go back to the original motion, which is to consider the whole package.
Okay. My guess is we wouldn't finish that up today, but that's, I guess if we have a motion and the motion that we tabled, and we reconvene in a week, that motion would be on the table. Is that the way it works?
I'm not a Robert's Rules expert.
Yeah.
And so
Okay, I'll do some research between now and then. Anyway, okay, so let's go to the prescriptive option. My preference would be to go through all of the prescriptive proposals rather than just the ones named in the motion. Because some of the other prescriptive proposals are variations on the ones named in the motion. So I guess let's.
You make a good point, Shell. Thank you.
So there's a lot of proposals that have to do with the prescriptive option.
Yes.
And in general, they do one of four things or all of four things, which is strike requirements for C403.1.4 and C404.2.1 or parts of it. But they modify the C406. They modify the number of credits needed for C406, and they added credit options to C406 as well. And so
there's not
Yeah.
There's not much difference between the proposals that I included and some of the other ones. There are a lot of similarities and they're essentially the same. So it might be worthwhile starting with the ones that were in the proposed in that package. And then after you do the ones that weren't included, people can speak up and say what differences were there.
I just want to make sure we don't miss any. And that's my well, I think if we start in there and we take really good notes on which ones we're covering, then we could come back and figure out which ones we didn't cover. So yeah, I think that's an okay way of doing it.
I mean, you bring up a very valid point, and I apologize, I didn't think about it that far. But yeah, I would be in support of going through all of those related proposals. It's understood that there are some that are identical, they overlap, all that. But the main purpose of tabling was just so that we don't vote on a particular package before we look at everything else. So that was the goal.
Yeah. Okay, well, which ones were included in the motion, and let's consider the first one on the list and then others that are very similar to that. Does that sound good? Okay, let's do that. So the first one on the list is 003. And this is a tie one. So Ty, do you want to speak?
Yep, this is Alan Spector again,
Oh, yeah.
standing in for Ty Jennings, who's unavailable. As I said on the residential proposals, I am not the building code expert Ty is, but I will do my best to describe what he and I discussed. So the proposal just introduces a single new energy efficiency credit measure table to factor for more efficient gas-fired water heating systems. And so since those would be added back in the gas water heat systems, it makes sense that there would be efficiency measure credits. And I believe Ty said that they would, he designed it consistent with how this has been done previously, where there would be credits if it exceeded the minimum federal efficiency requirements by 5% or more. So his intention there was to keep it very simple.
Okay, and then somebody would do some modeling on this and figure out how many credits to get. How many credits?
That's correct.
Yep. Yep. And I think PNNL did the original modeling, and we would beg them to continue to do modeling so that we're consistent with our number of credits for an amount of efficiency achieved. Okay, Henry.
Yeah, just the one comment I had on this one is that there's already a requirement in the prescriptive code, C404.2.1, that requires high input system to be condensing. So if you are going to go this route, you can't double dip. So any large system, usually ones that would serve an R2 or something like that, already required to have peak efficiency.
So Henry, I guess to that point.
Yeah, I was going to say, and imagine an adjustment could be made if needed.
And I guess to follow up, I don't have all this commercial modeling. Be interesting to see what the domestic hot water load is in comparison for some of these building types, like a business group B. Maybe some mercantile could have a higher load, but usually they're a little bit smaller, especially R1, R2. But again, just have to be wary of that. I think it's over 1 million BTUs. It's already a condensing boiler.
And so with, I guess, the language here is when I read the second line, it has to beat the section C4 3.3.2 by at least 5%. Is the condensing boiler in that section C4 3.3.2?
That one I just mentioned, 404.2.1. Yeah, it calls out, I think, a 95% or something. So that would be in the 5% higher. If that's what you're asking, sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you brought up a point, and I'm wondering if that point could be reflected in code language to improve the proposal, or maybe not. I don't know. I was just wondering.
Yeah,
if there was...
I haven't wordsmith the code language for this. I guess. Yeah, I could comment on my feelings on it, but I don't have good data for it. Just bringing up a possible confliction there.
Okay, thanks, Henry. Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. With all due respect to this one, I think I would prefer to see either 25 or 29 considered rather than this one. This one is a bit ambiguous and a little bit more complicated. Both 25 and 29 make specific reference to specific efficiency levels that might be better incorporated. I think it would accomplish very much the same thing, but simplified a little bit. So I don't know how you would want to handle that if we're just in discussion mode. There hasn't been a motion made on this yet, correct?
Yeah, no motion has been made on the, well, a tabled motion has been made about this particular proposal in conjunction with other proposals.
Right, but no motion has been made on this specific, I'll call it amendment. Right?
Yeah, I guess.
I know
guess
it's getting a bit complex.
It's getting complicated, but I think Gary, to your point, let's immediately consider 25 and 29 at this after we consider this one. Does that sound satisfactory?
Yeah, that was my comment. I if somebody asked me whether I wanted to vote up or down on this one right now, I'd probably vote it down in preference or in deference to either 25 or 29.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Greg Johnson.
Just to clarify, 25 and 29 were included in the proposal. If we wanted to strike this one from the list, I'd be willing to make that modification going forward. My intent is just to make it more inclusive and trying to find a compromise that incorporates everyone's ideas, but I'd be willing to change in the future. So.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Lisa.
Yeah, I'm looking at section C406.2.2.2, which is more efficient HVAC. Oops, sorry. It would be it would be 2.2.2.3, which is more efficient HVAC equipment heating performance. That standalone measure says no less than 90% of the total HVAC capacity serving the conditioned floor area shall have 5% better equipment efficiency. And so, again, depending on what other proposals are approved, this could end up just being a duplication, I think. Maybe someone else can define it a little bit better, but that's what it appears to be, is that if gas-fired equipment is allowed, then that existing measure would already capture this, I think.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. Kevin.
Thank you, Shell. The difference being that that section just referenced is for HVAC, and we are looking at water heating.
Oh,
However, maybe some of the language could be ported over.
thank you. Yeah, you're right. I was looking at the wrong thing. Okay, yes.
All right, Poppy, you're up.
Yeah, based on the comments from Gary, Alan, and Lisa, and in the interest of efficiency of our time, I make a motion to disapprove this proposal.
Now I'm
Second.
really,
If it's allowed, I'll second.
Are you sure you can do that when it's part of the main other?
yeah, I know, that's what I was kind of questioning. Is like,
don't-
I think what we should do is just,
That motion's been tabled. There are no motions on the table, so you can bring up a motion.
Yeah,
Do whatever you want.
I think that's separate. It could be included as part of that, or it could be its own, or it could be disapproved as its own.
Yep.
Would it be easier if we just, when we get to the untabling, I would just modify the motion when we untable it to remove this out?
yep, or someone, yeah, if you wanted to do that, you could, or somebody could propose an amendatory motion to remove it from your motion. Either one is a perfectly fine thing to do.
If that speeds things along, I'm okay with doing that.
Okay, I will make a note to bring this up when we get back to the main motion.
And
'Cause
what would we be
I don't-
doing when we get back to the main motion? And
I-
does that mean that I can't make a motion because I made one and I think it was seconded?
Yeah, and that's where I don't know my Robert's rules well enough. If there's a tabled motion that includes something else and you, I mean, I think you could probably make a motion to do whatever you wanted at this point. So I would say you have a motion to disapprove this. It was seconded. I think that is, I'm pretty sure that's in order. So let's go with that. Barry, you've had your, or I guess Poppy, do you want to speak on behalf of your motion?
Well, I mainly already said it. We have a lot on our agenda here, and I feel like there's kind of a consensus that this is maybe duplicative, and we've heard from a number of people, and it's not really a matter of.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Who seconded this, and do you want to speak to it?
I was the one who seconded the motion, and for, I think, reasons have been said, there's a lot of vagueness to this, and I think this doesn't have the fiber of detail to move forward.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Barry.
Yeah, just wanted to make a quick point on the double dipping comment that there are gas-fired heat pumps, so it is possible to exceed the efficiency of condensing equipment by 5% or more.
Thanks, Barry. Lisa.
Yeah, I appreciate the correction there. Kevin's correct. I was thinking about space heating, not surface water heating. So I wanted to note that correction, that this doesn't duplicate. The only detail that I would put out there is that the value of this particular measure, obviously, the credit value would have to be developed by P&L, and it's unclear, what that value would be. I assume that would be a part of completing the proposal, would be P&L coming up with a number for that.
Yep. And that's kind of implied. We've done that many times before, as you know, Lisa, and the tag is put something forward and then have P&L or some other entity supply very reasonable numbers in the table.
Yeah, and the only other detail I'll just kind of toss in about that is that, considering 5% better than code for a gas-fired piece of equipment relative to like 5% better than code. Oops, then like different type of cooling equipment or something like that. I'm not sure the number of actual credits. If we all knew what that would be, it's unclear if we would vote for it. But that would be
Okay.
something for Ian and Nell to confirm.
Yep, and this would get its stay in the MV and the council based on the number of credits as well. Kevin.
Oh, thank you, Shell. I actually like this proposal. It divorces the credits from a particular technology and just says, do the calculation based on the equipment you intend to use, and that establishes your credits. And as was noted, a gas heat pump, which does exist on the market for commercial use, could meet this requirement, the 5%, even in a high capacity situation, like over 1 million BTUs. And could we scroll down and see the equation? Yeah, so this is the core of the measure, is saying beat it by a certain amount, you get a certain number of points. And I don't know, maybe that's more complicated than having a strict, here's the piece of equipment you use and here's your points. This might be somewhere in between a prescriptive and a performance number or measure, but I kind of like the flexibility of it.
Thanks, Kevin. Henry.
The C406 is based off the total energy pie of a building type. So I think if you just look at water heating efficiency on its own and you don't know its comparable savings over the entire building use, you can lead to some very inaccurate results unless this EEC5 is telling you what percentage, right? In office, water heating is 5% of the energy use, multifamily is 25%. So that efficiency increase is a much bigger deal depending on what building type. So if you don't have a full understanding of energy use as what P&L can do, you wouldn't have reliable credit values.
Thanks, Henry. Gary.
Yeah, although I kind of like the flexibility, I don't think there's anything else in the additional credits table that would require you to do an additional calculation like this. Although I like the complexity, the flexibility, I don't like the complexity. And again, if you look forward to proposal number 25, it does include 2 options for natural gas equipment, one for high efficiency, either tank or tankless, and one that does in fact cover gas heat pump level efficiency. So again, more in favor of making it simple and not requiring an additional calculation in the middle of the credits table.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Let's vote on this puppy. This is the motion is to disapprove 003, which is on the screen in front of us. Let's do I'm just going to risk a voice vote on this thing. All in favor of the motion to disapprove 003, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay.
I'm sorry, wait a second, Shell. This is to disapprove. This is to not approve this.
To not
right?
approve 003, yes.
A clarification, do I have to, since the tabled motion can't be amended, does that mean I have to also, when we come back to untabling, do I have to also modify my original proposal to remove this out of it?
I think that's probably what I would interpret the tag's vote as saying, yes.
Okay, so if just remind me to modify the proposal when we untable it so we can remove this out of the original proposal, the motion.
Yeah. We'll do. Irina.
Hi, sorry. So I just want to confirm that an original motion on Johnny's proposal to include all of these additional proposals was made by Gregory Johnson. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And also, can I confirm that Gregory Johnson is a member of the TAG?
Gregory Johnson is a member of the TAG, serving as the electrical engineer representative.
Okay, that's new since the list that I have, so I apologize. Thank you.
It is new. It is an appointment made as of a couple days ago.
Welcome to the tag.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right, let's so we were just talking about 25 and 29. How about we head over to 25? And this is an Ian proposal. Ian, are you around?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, do you want to talk about this a bit?
Well, I think it's kind of similar along those lines of the ultimate goal here is to add in some efficiency credits for high efficiency gas appliances. And it goes further on there, specifically the UEF of 0.91, so kind of that condensing technology, and then the 1.29 UEF, which would be in the gas-fired heat pump type technologies. And that's the basics of what it's proposing here.
Okay, and there's no credit numbers, right? Or I mean the amount of credit you get in the credit table is unknown at this point. Is that correct?
Yeah, for those same reasons we've already discussed about having to set a baseline and calibrate.
Yeah, okay, so okay. Kevin, you did have your hand up. But
You answered my question.
Okay, yep.
I'd make a motion to approve this, to begin discussion. We get a second.
Second.
I guess if we can make a motion to disapprove, we can make a motion to approve. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Greg, did you make the motion?
No.
I
Okay,
made
who
the
is
motion, Shall this is
okay, Gary, do you want to speak to the motion?
Sure, I don't have to say much more. I think this adds a couple of highly efficient surface water heating options in there. And so I'll just support this proposal.
Okay. Who did the second on this one?
I did.
Do you want to speak to it, Patrick? You don't need to, but you can.
Same thing that Gary said. It's a good proposal. It's in the code.
Okay. Gregory Johnson.
So just a procedural question.
Sure.
If we vote on each individual standalone proposal up and down, then when we pull the untabled thing off, we're basically re-voting on the whole thing again. Would it be better if we just kind of discuss each proposal and then go to see if the compromise tabled motion passes or not? And then we could, if it doesn't pass, then we could look at things individually. If it does pass, then maybe we've already found a compromise for everyone.
Yeah, I thought through all the possibilities of what might happen today, and the motion you made is not one of them. So I'm not prepared to, with the rules as they apply in this case. It seems as if we were able to disapprove a proposal despite a tabled motion, we could also approve a proposal despite also being part of a tabled motion. I guess in my mind, if somebody made a motion to do something and it was tabled, and someone made a motion to do something that had some elements in common with the tabled motion, you could probably still take action on the second motion, even though it had some elements in common with the first one. That's how I'm approaching this. So it would seem like we could get the tag's input on each of these individual proposals, because that's kind of what we're or we could not do that, but I think we've already kind of set a precedent with the last one that's the way we want to proceed.
We could definitely proceed that way. I was just saying it's more efficient if we waited on voting until we vote on the table and first, and then if we want to do individuals after. But that was just, I was looking for a compromise that would accomplish what everyone wanted a little bit, or gave everyone a little bit of something.
Yeah, I yeah, I don't know what to do with it exactly, but I think if we consider these and we want to vote up or down on them, we can. If nobody made a motion on this one to approve it up or down, then we wouldn't have to take action on it. But since somebody made a motion, I'm just the chair. All I do is run the meeting. So someone made a motion on it, somebody seconded it. That means we have to do something with that motion. So that's where we're at on that issue. So I guess to that extent, let's take comments on the motion, which is basically just this proposal, moving it forward. So Kevin, do you have any further comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no parliamentarian, but I'm pretty sure a tabled motion is in jeopardy. Everything else can happen around it. And when it's pulled from the table, it has to be reacquainted with reality that may be even hostile to it. So I don't think there's any worry. I don't think we need to worry about that. We can deal with that tabled motion when it comes back.
Okay.
That being said, I believe, but I wanted to see if anyone has a different opinion. I believe the way this is written, it doesn't cause the problem that Henry brought up. That is that a large system could get double dip credits. I'm pretty sure that C462 is only focused on that equipment that would not be in that category, but I wanted to make sure that's true.
Does anybody have an answer for Kevin? Feel free to unmute and chime in. Okay, an answered question.
Well, to just follow up on that a second, the reason I believe it's not a problem is I think the code used to have these provisions or something like them, specifically the 91% UEF. I believe that's copied from 2018. So maybe my question is moot anyway.
Okay. Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a question for the proponent. Apologize, I'm going to have to get into the weeds just a little bit. Because this proposed C406264 only speaks to gas-fired equipment where the performance rating is based on UEF, is it the intent of the proponent that this is only applicable to equipment that's the basis of the rating, meaning that equipment that is rated based on ET would not be eligible for this? Or is the intent that it would cover all gas-fired equipment and therefore is an amendment needed to cover, provide some type of efficiency minimum for equipment that's rated based on ET?
I don't think the intent was to limit it to just this metric of UEF. I can defer to Kevin as well, who helped co-author this proposal on that intent.
Yeah, if that language isn't in the code, then it will be problematic.
And yeah, Ian's correct. The intent was not to limit, to be specific, not to limit equipment that's only rated by UEF. So if there needs to be an additional metric added, I think that would be appropriate. Not sure what the equivalencies are, but
Is there like a crosswalk table that someone has access to, Lisa? Is there such a crosswalk table, or is it a different kind of metric?
Well, it's just, when you look at table C 404.2, some of the equipment is, the performance, based on the test procedure is UEF. And some are ET. And they're not necessarily one-to-one. So you can't just appoint. In some cases you can, some cases you can't. We've run into this problem before because there was similar language like this in the 2018 code. And there were engineers that struggled with figuring out, okay, well, how do I show that I meet this baseline UEF when the only number I can get from the manufacturer is an ET. And so it just to be better code language. And if that wasn't the intent, it would be important to include that. That way, we'll run into this problem.
That sounds very reasonable, Lisa. Is there anybody on the call who wants to just unmute and have an answer on how to crosswalk or how this proposal could be improved by including the other metric?
Well, I probably won't have the answer, but this was exactly what I had my hand raised to discuss.
Okay.
And so the proposal that we looked at just before 03 had, referred to a 5% improvement over what was in the table. And so maybe, I'm putting Lisa on the spot because I know she's way smarter at this than I am, but would that be an appropriate way in order to not limit to the ones that use certain types of energy language anyways? And then the other half to my concern was that should we be looking at this to expand beyond gas, because there's also oil fired water heaters, and I believe that that's something that we should be concerned about for the EPCA.
I would say that's a good point. I actually I was thinking the same thing. I'm formulating my observation here as we go. To answer your question about can you just apply a percentage? That might be a little bit more difficult because the table now has, we've got this column called with draw pattern, and then the actual UEF is a calculation. I don't know if you gave it consistent across very small, low, medium, or high. So now I'd have to defer to somebody a lot smarter than me about this, which would be the original proponent of this new table, which is Mike Kennedy. So
Mike Kennedy, do you have anything to say on this?
Oh, is he on the call?
Yep.
Yeah. And then I have a comment, which I guess we can come back to. But I think you could do 5% better than the equipment that you are installing will fit into one of those draw patterns, and you would, it'll have to be, it's rated by the draw pattern, which has to do with the recovery efficiency and some other things. And so it would be 5% better than whatever category it's been lumped into. So that would be quite a bit different than this, which is this proposal is kind of forcing you to go with instantaneous equipment in 264. And so would be a pretty big increment for a lot of this equipment. So going to 5% is quite a bit smaller of an increment for a lot of these equipment classes. But it does seem like it might be required.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment, Mike, to your point, and that is that if we did pick a percentage, a number, I think it would have to be higher than 5% to get to the 0.91 that's originally being proposed. But again, I have to sharpen my pencil to figure that one out.
Well, the problem is if you go 10%, you'd never get an instantaneous piece of equipment, because they're actually required to be 0.91.
Ah, I see.
So this would be a very different measure to just say it's 5 or 10% across the board. That's okay, and it is similar to what we had before. I did have one other comment, and I just joined, so But traditionally, code has always had to be like no weaker than before, and the previous code required all high using gas equipment to be something like 90%, right? We had a section about it wasn't an option. You didn't get credit for it. It was, C404.2.1. Are we just ignoring the fact that the previous code regulated this stuff?
That's a good point. And I was just wondering if someone said this was based on 2018 language. And it seems like if we have problems with this language, then it's maybe not 2018 language.
Well, what I'm saying is we had a section that just required gas equipment to be 90% as the minimum requirement in buildings with 1 million BTUs of total capacity. And so that's kind of the base code here. I mean, in terms of the 2018 code. So to then give people extra credit for getting to that same level. I mean, and that section doesn't exist in the past, right? That was all dropped because of the heat pump requirement. But again, it's where does the 2018 code fit in these deliberations?
Can I speak to that?
Go ahead, Kevin.
So you're helping answer my earlier question, Mike, which was, this is focused on equipment less than 1 million, but does it butt into that issue of, yeah, but over 1 million, you got to be at this level? I don't know. I thought it was such that if it's over 1 million, you automatically have to do it. You don't get any credits, but maybe it needs to be spelled out. And if it's to
Did we
expand
put
on
that
this,
language? Did that language get put back in?
well, that's what this would do.
Oh, okay.
Or
Sorry.
no, it's elsewhere. Sorry, that's elsewhere.
Right. The language for high efficiency equipment or whatever, the over 1 million is, I think it's in the code already.
I think you're right.
I think there's language in it that says equipment not required to do X by C404.2.1 or whatever it's numbered.
Okay, we are coming up on the 4 o'clock hour. This was originally scheduled to end at 4 o'clock. I just want to see if it doesn't sound from the discussion like we're really close to voting on this thing. It sounded like we were about to do a little bit of wordsmithing. Does anybody want to extend the meeting, extend the joy and the fun that we're having together? We could do that. We could also just reconvene at a later date, which we will probably be doing anyway. I'm open to any motions anybody wants to make about extending the meeting or not. If you don't want to extend the meeting, just don't say anything right now. If you do want to extend the meeting, make a motion to do so if you're a tag member.
I'll make a motion to extend 15 minutes to see if we can, what I'd like to do is see if we can land on this, but I also, my hand is up to comment on 29 as part of this, so, but I'll wait and see if we extend.
I second that.
I apologize. I can't stay past 4. I have a business to run and I have 1 hour to return a lot of emails and phone calls that were missed all day. I think we should end the meeting.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Patrick spoke against the motion. Anybody want to speak for or against the motion? All right, let's vote. Let's do a roll call vote because I think there'll be at least a couple of no's on this one.
Mike Fowler,
Yes.
Scott Henderson,
Nay. Sorry, gang.
Shane,
Nay.
Ray,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes,
Eric Bedell,
Nay.
Sarah,
nay.
David Reddy,
No, and I'm dropping off kind of regardless. Thank you.
Gary Hickman,
Nay.
Irina,
Nay.
Poppy,
Yes.
Sean,
Nay.
Eric Olnon, Gavin Tenold,
Nay.
Patrick Hayes,
No.
Luke Howard,
No.
and Greg Johnson.
No.
Motion fails 4-12.
Okay, thanks everybody for the long day. I know it's been a slog. We're going to reconvene probably in a couple weeks, so look for an invite for that. Thank you all for all of your participation today. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Shell.
Thanks, Chow.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.